everybody. Welcome to Bestie Book Reviews. I'm here with my bestie, Mandy.
And I'm here with my bestie, Jessica.
So it's time for our 1 minute book recs. This is where we go over all the books that we read in the past week with 1 minute synopsises for each book. But before we get started with that, what do you want to tell them, Mandy?
Well, make sure you hit that subscribe button because you want to win these books. So when we get to 1,500 subscribers, we will be giving those away. So hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends to come join us over here. We're fun, right?
Yeah. Okay, I know you didn't see this morning. I don't think you saw it this morning, but I do have to give a shout out to whoever was at Karen Crompton's table at the event this weekend. You are awesome. She couldn't remember your name, but one of our subscribers came up to her and said, like, did a double take and was like, oh, I know you. I just watched your interview with Jessica and Mandy. And then she was like, she talked about us on our channel. So Karen sent me that message this morning, and I think that's so awesome. So whoever that was, thank you. So. Okay, so I read 7 books this week. I have 2 5 stars. I have an arc that's one of the 5 stars. I started my week off with a few pretty disappointing ones, and then it got better as the week went on. So, yeah.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you ended on a positive note.
I did. So let's start. You've got the timer ready?
I do.
All right, let's start with my first disappointment of the week.
Go.
Okay. Oh, I got to switch myself over. Don't forget to switch me back over when my minute's up.
Yes.
Okay. So the first book I read this week is called Odium, and it's by Claire C. Riley. So this is supposed to be a post-apocalyptic zombie type book, and there's like a bunch of books in the series. This was such a disappointment. So this is about Nina, and she's living in this compound that, survivors are living in, and the survivors want to kick out a young girl for eating food that she wasn't supposed to eat. She took it from the pigs or something, which they use the pigs to like lure out the zombies. I'm not 100% sure there. It wasn't really clarified. And then when they want to kick out the girl, she's like, no, I'll go with her. So she goes over the wall. They get found by this guy and taken to their group, and it's a whole thing. It didn't work for me because, first of all, Nina is supposed to have been married in her 20s. She acted like she was 5. And then the guy's name was Mikey, for one, and a grown man normally would go by Mike, not Mikey. And there was, all of a sudden, they're like a thing, but there was no connection between them. And it just did not work. I gave it 2 stars. Didn't work. Nope.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, I was intrigued for the first, few chapters, and then I was like, yeah, I'm out. This is just taking me out of it. So I didn't want to continue.
Okay.
All right. So what was your first book of the week?
Well, my first book was Lessons in Sin by Pam Godwin.
Okay.
And I did not have to call you and not want to continue reading this one like I have with other Pam books, because sometimes her books are really rough to start with. Like the abuse and stuff is just too much for me sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, that does not happen in this book. So we start off with Tensley, whose mom finds her kind of messing around with some guys. She's 18, but mom is still very controlling her life. And she decides to take her to a boarding school, a Catholic boarding school to be precise, where her virtue will be protected because her mom just wants to use her for basically an arranged marriage to better their business. What would it be? Standings, I guess. Mm-hmm. Money. Let's just be honest, people. It's all about the money. So here at the Catholic school, she meets Father Magnus. Father Magnus is pretty strict. He doesn't want to put up with anything, but yet for some reason finds himself a little drawn to Tensley. And Tensley, do I switch my, oh, you got me? Okay. Mm-hmm. Tensley, Father Magnus is hot. Like Jessica's talked about this book before. The girls get up really early in the morning to go stand at the window to watch Father Magnus work out without his shirt on, and they call it morning worship, which is kind of funny. So this is their story. Father Magnus also has some pretty dark secrets that he's hanging pretty closely to. And I enjoyed this one a lot. 4 stars.
Okay.
I love a taboo forbidden romance.
Yeah, exactly. So I love it. It was good when I read it. Morning worship.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So my next book was another one that was real. This book has been compared to the Cat and Mouse duet by H.D. Carlton. Let's talk about it, okay?
Okay. Tell us all about it.
All right. So I read Taming Seraphine by Gigi Six. The audio came out this last week, so I was so excited. On Saturday, I was cleaning our trailer, and I'm like, I am gonna read this book. Oh my god. Okay. So this is about Seraphine. She was the illegitimate daughter of some mafia guy, and he decided when she was 16 he was going to keep her and like as a prisoner and hold her family as prisoners and make her into this Lolita situation to kill. She gets rescued by Leroy, and he decides to keep her and tame her. Now she is absolutely unhinged, and I think it was kind of supposed to be like Sibby from the Haunting and Hunting duet. It's not at all. It's I got so bored. See, it agrees with me right here. I was very bored with it. I don't know if it was the audio. I know it was not. The audio was good. It wasn't the audio. It was the book. It was no Haunting and Hunting. Out of line for me. I gave it 2 stars. Again, with the 2 stars. There were a couple of funny situations that happened in it, but it just wasn't. It was like pulling teeth. So for me, it didn't work. If you love it, great. For me, I was like, no, sorry. Besides, who's met a sexy Leroy? Can we just have that conversation? I know that I have never met one. That's not saying there isn't one out there, but it's very hard for me to picture a sexy Leroy.
Why don't you Google it and see what you come up with?
Okay, I'll let you know. So, okay, what do you have next for us? Okay.
So next I read By Frenzy Arun by Cora Riley. This is her latest book. It just came out at the end of March in the Sins of the Fathers series. So we have Nevio. What?
Nevio? I think it's Nevio.
Nevio. Okay, so I was right. Okay, so we have Nevio and Aurora. Nevio is Remo's son, and if we go back to that book, Remo and Serafina both discuss how Nevio is very different from Greta, and he already has like some of that pent-up rage, psycho tendencies. Like, in fact, one of his uncles even calls him psycho. And so that is basically who his character is. And so he acts really insane. Definitely not, he has not been raised like a normal teenager. None of these kids have. So just wanted to throw that out there. So anyways, he participates in a lot of mafia stuff. And Aurora has been in love with him for like most of her little teenage life. And there's this song out that I think describes this relationship perfectly. It's Too Sweet by Hosier, where he talks about, you're too sweet for me. I like my coffee black, my whiskey neat. I go to bed. That's my time. I go to bed at 3 and you get up really early. Like, that's the song. And I feel like that song just fits this couple perfectly. Aurora's very sweet. Nevio, whatever, is not at all. But they are drawn to each other. And so finally, Aurora gets tired of waiting for him to see her differently. And something happens between the two of them. And so she leaves. And he cannot handle that. And he really, really struggles. Bunch of other things happen. But I'm not going to give away spoilers. So I need to rant for a second about this book because I saw that this book was getting beat up like really heavily. And Cora Riley's books tend to a little bit, but this one seemed to be getting it way worse than everything else. So I was like, why? What? Like, I'm really confused. So I went and glanced at the ratings on Goodreads because I was just curious, because I think you had told me you had seen some spoilers on TikTok. And so I went to just see what the ratings were. And one of the very first reviews has like a spoiler in the first line. Like, that is significant to the storyline. And I was so frustrated. So I have a small rant. Like, if you leave reviews, Goodreads lets you hide spoilers. So do that. Just because you're ticked off that you didn't like the book, doesn't mean that other people aren't. Like, have some respect. Not, if you can't respect the author, at least respect the other people that want to maybe read it, and hide the spoiler. You can still have your opinions, just hide that. Like, I don't understand why people do that. And then also, there were a lot of negativities about how Nevio behaved. And I felt like people, like, yes, there's some really gruesome stuff at the beginning of it. This is Cora Riley's Mafia world. If you've read any of her Mafia books, that's how she writes her Mafia world specifically, right? Like, and again, that's why I made the reference about Remo and Serafina when he was little. Like, if we've read the other books, we know that he has had these tendencies and behaviors long before this book came out. So, anyways, I was just like, I'm like, what? I didn't understand why people were upset about it. Like, maybe you don't like what happened or what their story was, fine, but stop leaving spoilers out in the open like that. Like, this was like literally in the first line, so I just glanced at it, and then my dang wandering eyes had to read it. I was very mad at myself. But hide the spoilers.
Yeah, it's rude. It's rude to other readers.
Yes.
It's rude to the author. So,
well, I feel like people were doing this because they were mad, so they were trying to get their point across, but that's not the way to do it.
Nope. Okay. All right. Okay. So,
oh, I rated it a 4, by the way. I don't think I said that. So I still liked it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right. So the next book I read is a part of a duet. I just read the first book, but we're going to talk about that first book. So this is I Know What Love Is. It's by Whitney Bianca. This is very dark, very, very dark. If you have any kind of triggers, you're going to want to check them before you read this book. So this is about Joan and Elliot. So Joan is at a bar one night, and it's told in like the past and the present. And she'll say back then, and then that we get to the later half of the book, and then it's like, okay, now kind of a thing. So anyhow, she's at a bar one night, and she sees a guy, a hot guy. But she doesn't like give him any, she doesn't, try and attract him or anything. Next thing you know, she's in the bathroom, and he breaks into the bathroom and he assaults her. And then she just wants to get out of there. She just wants to go home. And so instead of saying anything or doing anything, she starts walking home. Well, that's when he kidnaps her and takes her to his house, where he keeps her as his prisoner, and he assaults her the whole time. He is very delusional in what he thinks is happening in their relationship. She is just trying to get away. It's definitely captive. It is definitely dark. There are ramifications. So if you think that he doesn't get in trouble for these kinds of things, he does get in trouble. There's things that happen, but it becomes, she's his addiction, and then he becomes her obsession after the fact. So, really good. I gave it 4.5 stars. It was her very first book. There were a couple of like grammatical things that drove me out, or like a couple, where a word was in there that shouldn't have been in there, that kind of a thing. My brain just, totally just stopped working here. But I was able to look past them, and it was still a great book. So I need to read the other half, but the first one ended on a soft cliffhanger where you could say that was enough for you if you wanted to. So.
Okay.
I thought you were frozen there for a second.
No.
Okay.
All right. Moving on.
Yes.
To my next book.
Okay. What is that?
My next book is The Wolf and the Wildflower by Stacy Reed. This is our buddy read for the month. So when you are seeing this, our live show came out yesterday. That is over on Bookmark by Jen's channel. It does contain spoilers though, so just an FYI if you want to go catch that if you didn't catch it during the live. So we have Jules and James. James is a Duke, and he was lost at sea and has been stranded in the Yukon for I think about 10 years. He's recently found and brought back, and his mom is fretting that he has to get ready to get married and become a Duke, and he is just really struggling with a lot of things. Well, Jules has been pretending to be a man, and she works with her dad, who's a mind doctor. We would probably call that a psychologist now, but back then it's a mind doctor. And they go to meet with him to try and help him get integrated back into society and get ready to find a wife and fulfill his Duke duties.
Mm-hmm.
So All right, Jessica, what's your next book?
So my next book was an arc that I got from LV Lane. So this is Beautiful Savage. This is the start of a trilogy or a 3-book series. It's only the first one's out. It just came out on the 19th. And I just switched to me, not to you. Okay, so this is, again, it's Beautiful Savage. It's her Obsidian Lies book 1. I really like LV Lane stuff. She does a lot of Omegaverse, but it's different. It's kind of got fantasy elements in it or sci-fi elements, and that's what we get in this one, is a little bit of sci-fi feel to it. So this is about Isla, and she is traveling. So this is like a futuristic world, and they have domes. Like everybody lives in these domes to be protected from meteors. In between the domes is like a savage land area that isn't in a dome. And so her boyfriend proposes to her. They're engaged. Just before they get going, they're moving from one dome to the next because of his job. And so they have to take like a really quick train that goes through, like a bullet train type situation. When they're on the train and they're going through the savage lands, the train gets stopped by the savages and she gets kidnapped and taken by this group of guys. What I will tell you guys is that it is Omegaverse. It is like a forced situation. It's a captor-captive. It will be a reverse harem, but for right now, in this first book, it is just a singular situation. And it ends on a soft cliffhanger. Like, you could be happy at the end of it. So.
All right.
Yeah, I give it 5 stars.
Okay.
All right, what you got?
Okay, so my next book is called Rustic Hearts by Amber Kelly. Jessica.
Oh, no.
Every time.
I was like, do I hang out here or what?
Every time I try and do an intro, you cut me off. This is
you
a tally
haven't
mark.
been doing them. You haven't been doing them on the other books. So I was like, do I hold? Do I wait? It does this to me. Do I hold?
You're giving yourself a thumbs up for cutting me off. Wow.
I'm so sorry. Okay, tell me.
This is what has happened. You have gaslighted me into thinking that you're picking on me, and then you're trying to gaslight me into thinking that you're not. And I just don't know what way is up anymore.
I'm sorry. I really am not picking on you.
We're gonna have to use our money for counseling. Couples therapy.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So my next book is Rustic Hearts by Amber Kelly, who is an author we will be seeing this summer.
At which one?
Romance Invades the Rockies.
Okay.
For sure. But I think she might be on the list for another one too.
Okay. All right.
So I was excited to try a book by her. It's the first time I've read anything by her.
Okay. So you ready to switch?
Yeah, that's the code to switch.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so this is about Sophia and Braxton. Sophia, when she was 12 years old, her mom moves her out of their ranch home and into New York City. And this is where Sophia grows up. Sophia is like in her 30s, has lived in New York this whole time, and has not seen her dad or anyone from her family since they left the ranch. And it's really caused her a lot of hurt and confusion as to why her dad never came for her. And so she gets a phone call that her gram has passed away. There's a will, and she needs to be present when the will is read, and that there's a funeral happening. So she decides to fly back there and go to the ranch and go to the funeral and all of that, and maybe finally get some answers about what happened with her dad. And so that is what propels her back to the ranch, and there she meets Braxton. And Braxton is very grumpy, and he's frustrated with her. He's not happy that he calls her Princess Sophia, and he feels like she abandoned the family. Again, she was 12, but he feels like when she was an adult, she could have reached out sooner, and like that her dad is a really good man and that there's more to the story. And so that just causes a lot of friction between them. So we kind of have like enemies to lovers happening here as well. I really enjoyed it. It was a solid 4 stars for me, and I plan to read more by her.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so I read a novella next. It was a free novella. So let's talk about that one.
Okay.
So this is called oh my gosh, Nightmare. And it's by Bethany Winters. And it is about Violet and Atticus. So off page before the book starts, Atticus is crazy, over the top possessive of Violet. They're in college. They've been together since they were young. And he physically assaults her study partner, or the person she was tutoring, or something to that effect, and gets thrown in jail for 7 months. So during this time, he's like reaching out to her and she won't talk to him. She won't have anything to do with him. Well, when the book starts, it's the night on Founders Day in their town. All the kids who were children of like descendants of the founding people in their town have this big drunken brawl basically in the woods. And so she's there. He shows up. She doesn't know that he's out. He chases her. He does the whole thing. They're in clown makeup. They're doing drugs and drinking, and I had a very hard time with that because at the very end it mentions she's a law student. I don't know too many law students who are out there just boozing it up. Let me just tell you. I gave it 3 stars. Did I enjoy it because of the overtop craziness? Yes. But honestly, I felt like this book was just an excuse for a lot of smut and a lot of drinking. I just don't understand, how are they're kids. They're 19, 20. How? Why when they have kids in books like this, teenagers, why are they always partying? Why are they always drunk or drugged up? I don't understand it. That doesn't make them appealing. I don't get it. It just makes me hate them even more. Oh, we weren't drunk. We weren't doing drugs at that age or any age. But I don't get it. It drives me insane. I mean, it wasn't drunk, but it was an excuse for smut. It was like 80 pages. It was a quick read. Yeah. Okay.
I'm just gonna be quiet.
Why? You weren't. Why?
When I went to college, going to parties was quite popular. Like going out to the bar and clubs and stuff when you turn 21.
I mean, I went to one when I turned 20 on my 21st birthday, and I was like, "This is it. I'm out." It wasn't my thing. I just don't want to read about it. I don't get it. Why is everybody? Okay. You're a law student and you're drunk and drugged up. I don't get it. Okay. How are you? You know, how are you passing those classes?
Oh, Jessica. Okay. All right. So before you switch over, I need to talk a little bit about the book that I'm going to talk about. So the next book I read was 9 Month Contract by Amy Dawes. It's her newest release, and it's deals with surrogacy. And I did see some reviews. I don't read reviews unless I accidentally see them before I've read a book. So after I read the book, I saw that some people had marked it down quite a bit. And so I went and looked at some reviews, and there was somebody who I really appreciate their review. They actually didn't rate the book, and they just wrote why they chose not to read the book. And I appreciated that they gave their opinion about it and just didn't read the book or rate it, which I think is important. So this does deal with surrogacy, which can be a very sensitive subject for people. The author has a note about research and things and personal experiences that led her to how she wrote the book. So that just going in, if this is a subject where you're going to feel maybe more sensitive about, this is probably not the book for you. And I do understand where some people were coming from with their thoughts. But I also think, like, for the rest of us, we can just read it and appreciate it as a book. But if it's that sensitive subject for you, it's going to be harder to appreciate this book. And there's so many good books out there. It's totally okay just to move on. But if you're not, if like that sort of thing, like you can read the author's note and feel good about reading it, then let's talk about the book.
Okay.
Okay. So I just wanted to put that out there before I started. So this is about Wyatt, And Wyatt is in his somewhere in his 30s. And he has decided that he wants to be a father. He lives up on this mountain with his brothers, kind of like in this family plot of land up there. And he's decided he just really wants to be a father. Some of those reasons are more addressed in the book. And so he has been looking for a surrogate, but he's not having any luck through the agency. So his brothers post like this hilarious ad kind of poking fun at him. And his niece, who's 18, decides to get involved and try and help him because she adores her uncle and really wants to help him. So she gets involved, and that's where Trista comes in. Trista is like just a breath of fresh air for a heroine. I feel she is a plus size heroine, but it's not done over the top. Like it's mentioned a little bit. You can switch me back. My time's up. It's mentioned a few times, but it's definitely done respectfully and not where you're like, I get it, she's overweight. It's not like that at all. I really, really enjoyed how Amy wrote that piece into this book. My favorite part, though, is that Wyatt has a pet goat. And at the beginning of the chapters, it's like animals on the mountain, one, and that number just keeps like increasing rapidly. And it's just really funny. So I personally really enjoyed the book. It was a solid 4 stars.
Awesome. I like Amy does. She makes me laugh sometimes in her books. So
yes.
Yeah.
I think for some people, because it does have that rom-com to it, that surrogacy is just something that they're not going to be able to take lightly and enjoy in this type of book.
I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
But my husband needed my car keys. That's what you were saying. Anyhow, okay. So my next book is one that you've read, and it's one that I was waiting for the audio because I love the audio when this author does it. And I loved being back in this world. And that is The Pucking Wrong Date by C.R. Jane. So this is the 3rd book in her hockey series. And oh, I love this so much. So we have Olivia and we have Walker or Disney. And I don't know which one's my favorite because I've loved all 3 of them. I think it'd be really hard to choose a favorite, but this is inching up there. I laughed so much. And it was like how you said, in 1 minute you're crying or you're, I wasn't crying, but you were like, oh, this poor girl. And then the next minute you were laughing your butt off because you're in Walker's point of view and he's doing something silly. But this is about Olivia, who is she is a pop star. She was made famous when she was really young. Her mom and her manager are horrible people and they control her life. And she's in a really bad situation as of right now. She's gone through some really bad things. And she's not performing at this time, but that's because she's trying to stop certain things that are happening in her life. And so that is her only way of rebelling. And she meets Walker one night after a hockey game, and he is just smitten with her from the second he sees her. He is like, that is it. That is her. This is it. And he does everything he can to get back into her orbit. He'll stalk her. He does all the crazy that we expect from these guys. And, he wants her to have his baby. We see this set up at the very end of the 2nd book. I loved it. It was 5 stars. I am probably not even doing it justice, but it is like, I love how over the top these guys are. They're possessive and they're crazy, but it's done in a way that it doesn't feel dark. It makes it feel kind of funny. Like you'd never be okay with it in real life, but I love it. I love the way these boys love their women. Absolutely love it. Yes. And we see all of them, all 3.
It's my favorite. And I think because the relationship between the 3 of them really stands out in this book. So I really enjoyed it. Quick side note. If you like these covers, they're getting changed out soon. The next book doesn't come out until June, but I saw her posting that they would be getting changed out. So you need to grab these if you want it. I'm hoping that the one that comes out in June will match these covers.
Yeah, me too.
But side note for that.
Yep, I need to get mine. So yeah, I was kind of hoping she'd have special editions when we see her, but that is going to be in the fall and I can't put all my eggs in that basket. So yeah. Are you done? Do you have one more?
I have one more.
You have one more. Okay.
Okay. Where is it? Somewhere sitting here. Okay.
All
My
right.
next book, Taming Seven by Chloe Walsh. I've waited over a
Forever.
year for this.
I know. All right, let's talk about it.
Okay. First off, I won't say any spoilers, but if you don't want to hear my point of view, I will not be offended if you skip past this, because if you're very excited about it, you might want to. So, anyway, I've waited over a year. Claire and Gibbsy were like it for me. I could not wait to read their story. I dove in, very excited. It was so fantastic to be back in this world and seeing everybody. And then I started getting bored. And I'm like, oh, this isn't good. Like, when is this book going to pick up? Like, this is their story, but like, what is the plot in this book? And it kind of started to drag. And then Gibbsy would be Gibbsy again, and Claire would be Claire. And I'd be like, oh, like there's this cute little scene where they get kind of in a fight and they're talking about custody over their pets and everything. And I'm like, this is what I wanted. I love this. And then we would be back to where it just started dragging again. And then Lizzie is like really just, she's awful in this book. And I got so tired of how she was behaving. And I really just wanted to start skimming whenever she was on page, which was quite a bit because I just couldn't handle her anymore. And I couldn't handle how everybody was allowing her to behave. Like it really like started to wear on me. And I started to be like, this is why Jessica doesn't like reading YA, because of this. And then like some more stuff comes out in the book and it's just over. And I just I didn't like it at all. And I'm so
Oh.
sorry. And Jessica actually called Jessica, and Jessica could care less about these books. But if you've watched our channel, you know that the first four I love. They're like favorites of mine. And you've probably heard me talk more than once about how excited I was for this book. And Jessica could care less. I think she actually used those words about this series. And I actually
But
called
I
her
care
and I'm
about
like,
you.
it's awful. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like
Good.
you felt horrible for me because you knew how much I was looking forward to this.
I mean,
So
you sent your husband to Barnes and Noble the day it came out to get it for you because your Amazon one was not going to be there in time. Like,
yeah.
I know that you've been looking forward to this, and I'm sad for you that it sucked for you.
Yeah, I was at work, and so my husband went to Barnes and Noble because I live out in the country, and so it's not like I could just run to Barnes and Noble. And so he went and got it for me so I could start reading after work. Like I wanted to love this book so much. And at first, when it started to get a little boring for me and start dragging, I was like, okay, I think I had unrealistic expectations because I love the first four so much. And I was looking forward to this. I'm like, I just need to, calm down a bit. So I set the book aside and did other things and picked it up again the next day. And I'm like, I still feel this way, but I like pushed through. And then I would get like excited again because there was Claire and Gipsy. And then it would just go back to dragging. And I didn't like it. And that's horrible because I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
love it. I figured this was going to be like my top book of the month, maybe even the year. Like I put so much hope into this book and then I didn't like it. And then I'm like, okay, if I didn't have connections to this series, I would be like rating, I probably would have DNF'd, and I don't DNF, but I might have. I'm like, I feel like this would be a two, but I can't rate it a two because I just love them so much. But I hated the book. I didn't like it. I'm so sorry, people. And I don't know how to rate it. So it's just sitting on Goodreads with no rating because I don't know what to do. I feel so conflicted, but I hated it.
We're just gonna
Is
pause here
there
and
a
let Nancy
support
have her
group for
crisis.
this?
I feel bad for you. I know how much you anticipated that. It would be like Grace throwing out a book and I'd be like, oh, I didn't like, I mean, I couldn't imagine.
But Grace writes more than one book a year. I
Yeah.
waited over a year.
Uh-huh.
Now I have two copies.
Yeah, you
The
do.
Amazon one finally showed up.
Oops. You know you can send that back, right?
It's so sad.
It's very sad. I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry.
That's probably why I won't say the name of it, but I'm reading another book and I'm having a hard time with it. And it's probably because I'm just so devastated about this book right now.
Yeah. And the other book, I know what you're reading. And I'm like, just walk away from it for a while if you're going to hate it. You need a palate cleanser. You need something in between.
And this book, like, it looks like it's like a normal size book. It's over 400 pages. But the pages, like, this book is a lot bigger and the print is pretty small. So it's a lot to read.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sure people are watching this video and they're like, this was my favorite book ever. What's wrong with you? And I don't know. Nobody is more upset about how I feel about this book than I am.
Than you.
So,
yeah. So.
But here at Bestie Book Reviews, we keep it honest.
We do.
Even when it hurts.
Even when it hurts.
And this hurts a lot. So if you read it and you feel the same way, will you please reach out? I need somebody.
She needs moral support, and it's not just for me because I'm not reading it.
Oh.
So I'm sorry. I really am. But let's talk about my last book and ended on a decent note.
Oh, good. Good.
Okay. So I was telling you about this series. So this one is like the novella before the series. So this is the 0.5. But I should tell you, you remember the movie 7 Brides for 7 Brothers? Like the old movie. Did you ever watch that?
No.
We had a close friend that was his favorite movie of all time. You know who I'm talking about.
Nope.
This was one that I watched when I was a kid, and I absolutely loved it. And it's about the Sabine women, where the one brother goes and gets himself a wife, just goes to town, proposes, and marries in the same day, and then the brothers come in and they steal the women. And somebody had asked for that in one of my reading groups, like something along the lines of 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. And this is what popped up. They're like, oh, try this. It's about the Sabine women, the Romans and the Sabine women. And I was like, oh, let me jump into that. So this is 0.5. So this takes place 40 years before the book starts. This is the story of the dad. And so I'm going to tell you all about this one. So this is about Karina and Mitchell. So this is all told from Mitchell's point of view. So Mitchell is a widower. He got married really young. His wife was 17 actually when they got married. And this takes place back in like probably the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. And his wife died at the age of 19 from a brain aneurysm. And she left behind their 1-year-old son. Well, now it's 5 years later. And he hasn't married again, but his little boy is asking for a mama. And so he decides that he's going to follow the family's tradition of getting himself a wife. And they literally go find a woman that like sparks their interest. They kidnap them, they bring them back, and they marry them the next day, and they keep them. And that is what they do. That is how the men in his family have done this their whole lives. And so he goes and he gets his boy a mama. And that is where Karina comes in. She is brought back to be this kid's mom and to be this guy's wife. I just say for like a captive situation, this was very soft. Like he just wanted to love her. It's in the 70s. This takes place in the 70s, so it's not like she has her cell phone on her. And because even makes a mention of what's going to happen when Amos, his son, is an adult, because there's all these things that are happening. And when he goes to get his wife, how is this going to play out? And there were a few corny little elements to it, the way Amos talks to his dad sometimes, or the way how he's so excited about having his mama. I still gave it 4 stars. I still loved it. I've started the first book in the series, which is Amos's, and right now I'm liking it a lot. So, yeah.
Okay.
7 Brides for 7 Brothers. Yep. This sold me on it. So, okay. So that is our reading week. It was good at some points and highly disappointing at others. I'm sorry, Mandy. I really am sorry.
All right. Well, make sure you check back on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays for new videos from us, and leave us a comment. How was your reading week? Anything you're looking forward to reading? Are you willing to join my support group? Let us know in the comments below.
Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.